30 minutes, Channel 2 Action News has learned the mother of 3 killed in front of an elementary school was delivering food when she was shot and killed. Some parents decided to keep their children home today. Channel 2's Taisha Fernandez is live at the school in Palmetto. Taisha, counselors were there for the students who were at school.
Karen, friends of the victim told us she did not have any children attending this school, so it makes so much sense now that she was delivering food. Now, the shooting happened right in front of the school here. That's the front door. And a spokesperson for the district couldn't tell us how many students didn't come to school today, but he did say the school's alert system helped make the reaction to the shooting go smoothly.
On February 10th, 2026, at approximately 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Ebony Anderson, a 34-year-old DoorDash rider, pulled into the parking lot of Palmetto Elementary School in Fulton County, Georgia, to complete a food delivery. Within minutes of her arrival, gunfire was reported at the location. A man, later identified as 39-year-old Christopher Loris Ates, exited the back seat of Anderson's vehicle, shot her, and then fled the scene in the vehicle with Anderson's infant child inside. Students and staff at Palmetto Elementary were placed on a hard lockdown affecting about 550 students, and law enforcement initiated an urgent response to secure the scene, investigate the shooting, and locate the suspect who had fled in a stolen vehicle. Anderson was pronounced dead at the scene. Here, we deliver clear, factual, and up-to-date true crime stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed on the latest cases and investigations. At roughly 11 a.m., law enforcement received multiple calls reporting gunfire at Palmetto Elementary School near the main entrance in the parking area. Officers from the Fulton County Schools Police Department and other first responders arrived within minutes of the initial radio calls. Upon arrival, officers located Anderson's body near her vehicle outside the school entrance. She had sustained fatal gunshot wounds. The infant child was not located at the immediate crime scene. Responding officers initiated lockdown procedures inside the school, confirmed that students were secure, and began securing the crime scene perimeter. Dispatch logs show that initial calls from witnesses came as shots were heard near the vehicle. Specific timestamps from dispatch audio corroborate the approximate time of 11 a.m. School administrators concurrently activated emergency protocols designed for active threat incidents. Students and staff were directed to lock classroom doors, remain quiet, and shelter in place. No injuries were reported among students or school personnel during the incident. The suspect was observed by witnesses getting into the victim's vehicle and driving away from the scene with the child inside. As officers established a perimeter around the school and nearby intersections, investigative units began capturing witness statements and gathering surveillance footage from school cameras and nearby businesses to determine the suspect's direction of travel. Between approximately 5 a.m. and 11 a.m., Andersons were consistent with her work routine as a DoorDash delivery driver. GPS and app data from DoorDash records show she logged into the application and began accepting delivery assignments early that morning. Specific delivery locations and timestamps place her making multiple deliveries within the Atlanta metropolitan area. There is no public record of law enforcement having released detailed app logs. However, standard investigative practice involves extracting such data to verify her movement patterns prior to the fatal delivery. During this same period, records indicate that Ates was present with Anderson and her infant in the vehicle. Investigators later published statements noting that Ates was known to Anderson and had a relationship history with her family. At this stage, investigators focused on reconstructing the sequence of locations visited by the trio through cell phone location data, traffic camera footage, and eyewitness reports. Publicly, authorities have attributed the motive to a domestic dispute, but have not released detailed evidence supporting that conclusion. From approximately 11 p.m. the prior night to 5 a.m., there are no confirmed public records detailing Anderson or Eitz's actions. Investigators typically request phone records, text message exchanges, call logs, and mobile GPS pings for both individuals to reconstruct their interactions and communications in the hours leading up to the incident. Without release of these materials, the narrative at this stage remains that law enforcement was working to establish timelines using these digital sources. Detailed phone records are part of ongoing case documentation but have not been released publicly pending charging decisions and pre-trial discovery. Defense filings may eventually include such details, but as of the last public reporting, timing and content of communications in this 12-hour window have not been disclosed. Over the 24 hours prior to the shooting, law enforcement began background checks on both Anderson and Eitz. Standard procedures in homicides include confirming any prior history between the victim and suspect, obtaining prior police reports, and interviewing family or acquaintances. Publicly available criminal records show that Eitz had previous arrests for unrelated offenses. Investigators submitted requests for prior police reports involving both individuals as part of a broader effort to determine whether there were documented prior incidents that could illuminate motive or behavioral patterns. At this stage, prosecutors and detectives were building profiles of both parties. However, none of this material was released in detail to the press, and accurate minute-by-minute reconstruction of interactions 24 hours before the event remains incomplete in the public record. First responders arriving at the scene immediately secured the school grounds and confirmed that the shots were fired outside the school. The perimeter extended from the parking lot into adjacent streets to contain any potential suspect movement. Detectives from the Fulton County Police Department's Homicide Unit and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were notified and took over the investigative lead. Routine procedure in such cases includes photographing and documenting the crime scene, locating ballistic evidence, shell casings, bullet fragments, processing the vehicle for forensic evidence, interviewing witnesses, including school staff and parents who were present. Because the suspect fled in the victim's vehicle with the infant child inside, the case escalated immediately to a multi-agency pursuit. Dispatch sent out a region-wide BELO advisory containing a description of the vehicle, the suspect's name once identified, and a request from other law enforcement agencies. Public reporting does not include precise timestamps for when shots were fired relative to when the suspect entered the vehicle or when law enforcement first broadcast the suspect's information. In major cases, officers often create a second-by-second timeline based on 911 audio, dispatch logs, and body-worn camera footage. Those records remain under seal and have not been made public, and thus minute-by-minute reconstruction cannot be fully rendered here without speculation. Investigators seized phones and obtained subpoenaed metadata for both Anderson and Eitz. Standard procedure includes extracting GPS location data to determine exact routes taken, reviewing text message and call logs for communications between the suspect and victim or third parties, securing app logs from the DoorDash platform to pinpoint delivery timing and location. None of these digital records have been released in detail, but such evidence is routinely central in reconstructing timelines in homicide cases. Shortly after the shooting, law enforcement identified Christopher Loris Eitz as the primary suspect based on witness reports and vehicle movements captured on surveillance cameras. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation confirmed that Eitz was known to Anderson and that prior contacts between them were documented. Investigators issued arrest warrants for murder and other related charges. Key pieces of evidence obtained by law enforcement include the victim's vehicle recovered during the suspect's apprehension with forensic examination completed by crime scene technicians, school and nearby surveillance footage used to track the suspect's departure route, 911 and dispatch logs establishing the timing of calls reporting the shooting. Fall forensic reports remain unavailable publicly, but the recovery of the suspect's vehicle and the infant child were significant developments in the investigation. After a multi-county search, law enforcement located the suspect driving the victim's vehicle in Middle Georgia. Officers engaged in a pursuit that ended when the vehicle crashed near county lines. Ates was taken into custody at that location and transported to a regional detention center. Charges filed at that time included reckless driving, fleeing or attempting to elude law enforcement, cruelty to children in the second degree, and murder charges pending in Fulton County. Prosecutors announced that additional charges related to the infant child's endangerment would be included as part of the indictment. As of the most recent public reports, a formal trial date for the murder of Ebony Anderson has not been scheduled. Prosecutors were preparing indictments that include capital murder enhancements given the location of the crime and the presence of a child. Defense counsel filings and pre-trial motions have not been released. Several aspects of the case remain unresolved in public documentation. Exact motive specifics beyond general characterization as a domestic dispute, content of communications between Anderson and Ates prior to the incident, precise timing of the shooting relative to interactions immediately preceding it. Investigative agencies have indicated that full timelines will be part of court filings during the prosecution phase, but those materials remain confidential until presented in a public docket. Thanks for watching.